with that, I will finish up and open the floor to any questions that you may have.
We're going to hand the floor first to Elena had a question. Can you guys hear me for the speaker?
Yeah, I can hear you, Carol.
You can?
I can.
Okay, so Elena, shout this loud.
Hey, Steve, I was interested in your combustion process for the water. You said that you showed that the deuterium was being overcorrected and not the 18O. I'm wondering if you can give us some information about why you think specifically that the deuterium is having a larger effect, and if there's any way to correct for the overcorrection so that you do end up getting the right delta value.
Yeah, so we think that deuterium is coming from the organic molecule itself. So we think it's representative of the organic. One of my colleagues, Jeff Carter, who's a systems engineer with us, has actually modeled this process and actually predicted with complete destruction of that organic that you would get a slightly negative slope for your delta D. So it may be possible that we can correct for that. We haven't looked into doing that yet. What I'm really trying to educate people on at this stage is you can do this combustion process. It will help improve the precision and accuracy greatly, but you still may need to account for a margin of error based on that, because you're working on an oxidative process rather than something that's not going to introduce O2 or hydrogen.
Okay.
I'll repeat the question.
I have a question related to your matrix-bound preparation device. What are typical materials? Oh, okay.
I'll repeat it.
What are typical materials? How much volume of material can you introduce into it? And basically, how does it work?
Yep. Okay. So, so the question for audience members out there was a little bit more detail about our induction module. How much material do you need to have? How does it work? So the induction module is designed, the optimal range is to work with about 3 microliters of water. So dependent on what your sample is and how wet or dry that sample is, you'll need to have a larger or smaller sample. Typically, we've found that when we're looking at leaves, if you do a hole punch, that's plenty of water. That will get you about that 3 microliter range. There is a slight concentration dependence, though, so we do also like to encourage people to really try to target that 3 microliter sample size. In terms of how it actually works, what we do is we introduce a small, in the example of a leaf, a small clipping into a metal strip that goes into a glass sample vial. That glass sample vial is put into the induction module, and a needle is inserted into the septor on top of that. It's flushed with dry air, and then we inductively heat. We have an inductive heating coil around the glass vial. It's in a metal strip, and so that metal strip will heat up, and you will release the water vapor. The water vapor, which I failed to mention actually, also passes through that same combustion technology that I was talking about with the microcombustion module. So we have that same cartridge in there, so that, of course, you're working with things like plant mortars, you're going to expect there's going to be other potential interference compounds in there. So you can combust those in line as well. The other thing that we do to standardize the system, so to calibrate the system, is we'll use glass filter paper, where you can inject on a water of a known isotopic composition, also about 3 microliters. And much like you would do with a plant clipping, you put that into your metal strip, inductively heat it, and measure the isotopic composition of that. So you want to sort of optimize your standard and sample technique to be as close as possible to make sure that you're not fractionating that sample and resulting in inaccurate results.
Okay, we'll entertain more questions from Menlo Park, but despite shouting at the speaker with a microphone, Kate, did you repeat the question anyway? Any more questions? We were going to hand this next to see if Len or Tyler had a question, and then open it to the chat. Len, Tyler?
No questions.
Okay.
I don't have anything either.
Okay.
Nice job.
So Kate, you can read the questions
Yeah,
and save them?
I don't think I see any at the moment.
Is it there?
I know, but I don't think those are real questions.
Oh,
It's
okay.
more like,
Okay.
can you hear me? Does anybody else?
So I have one here that was chatted to me privately, regarding the, boy, I have to get my reading glasses on. I'm sorry, the IM, you talked about, let me see, I'm sorry, I've got to find my reading glasses. This is such tiny print. Regarding the IM, you talked about matrix-bound water. Does that include soil water?
So it's a very good question. Soil water, we have had more issues with running soil waters on the IM than leaf waters. So I typically say to anybody who wants to run soils on the IM, try it, but you might also want to do some other methods. So one method that I know works very well that Len published on is what's affectionately known as the Ziploc bag method, where basically you enclose your soil into a Ziploc bag, you dry out the air surrounding that, and you let the water vapor equilibrate from the soil into the Ziploc bag, and then you extract that water vapor. That's a much longer-term process. Obviously, you need time for that equilibration to occur. It's probably more time-intensive as well. We do want to continue to improve our methodology for soils. I really want to get into the lab and do some spiked water studies with soils. It's a matter of time getting in there and doing that. So the IM, I would say, is certainly worth a shot with soils. I wouldn't necessarily guarantee the performance with soils, and I would certainly encourage people to make sure they are at least initially doing some methods development to measure those soils with the induction module and cross-checking it with other techniques.